Good evening, Shawn.
Good
How are
evening.
you tonight?
How
Welcome
are
to
you, man?
Coffee and Vinyl, everybody. Thanks for hanging out with us. It's noisy upstairs, folks. That's all I'm going to say. But cheers. Um, cheers, Shawn. It was a gorgeous day today, Shawn.
Oh, well,
Unbelievable.
oh man, yeah. Oh, it was so nice today. It was great,
Yeah.
man. My kids spent plenty of time outside playing. They weren't
Yeah.
complaining it was hot. I, went out a little bit earlier, and yeah, man. Oh, if it was like that 365 days a year, I would be a happy, happy man.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I would too. I like that a lot. So yeah, that was very nice. We have those nice days here in North Carolina, and I cherish them. And we
Sure.
rarely have them. We rarely have them two in a row.
Yeah, I was going to say I'll certainly take this over, like the middle to end of July and early August when it's basically hell's front porch.
Absolutely.
ATC.
Hey, TC. Cheers. Thanks for joining us tonight. And cheers to Twin Glitch. Yeah. Oh, I think I recognize Twin. Hey, Twin. I think I knew your mother. Shawn, I'm going to mute me for a little while, and hopefully the vacuum cleaner will stop soon. So why don't you get started?
All right. Okay, so I would be remiss, I think, to not spend a little bit of time tonight on Van Halen, just given the fact that Eddie Van Halen is no longer with us, and that still hasn't fully sunk in yet. I mean, I know the guy had his issues. We certainly all do, but there is no denying and no questioning what that man did for rock and roll and the unbelievable amount of talent that he had with his acts. His style was inventive. It was fun to listen to. And, the music that Van Halen gave us over the years, I mean, to me, it's the musical equivalent of a dog in sunglasses, right? It's just cool. It's just cool to listen to. It's cool to see. It is what it is. So, I was fortunate to have a few of my dad's old David Lee Roth era Van Halen albums that have been passed to me. This is his original copy of the first Van Halen record. And this is literally the copy I've been listening to my entire life. I'm 41 and he had this before I was born. So, this is the copy I've had my entire life. Same thing with this. His copy of Van Halen 2, again, had this my entire life. This is the only LP I've ever listened to for my entire existence.
That's very cool.
And then same thing with this is his copy of Women and Children First. This one was actually in better condition because by the time this came out, he had a toddler and didn't have as much time to listen to records. So this one, yeah. And then this is a copy of Fair Warning that I bought. He never had Fair Warning. I like this record. I can't say I love it, but I do like it a lot. And this is a copy of Diver Down that I purchased. Diver Down is one of those where there's not a lot of gray area, right? I know a lot of fans love it. A lot of fans weren't too big on it because it's mostly covers and things. This was supposed to be an EP. The record company said, no, you're going to give us a whole album. So they said, okay, well then it's going to be a whole lot of covers because we don't have the material. So, yeah.
I've always liked the simplicity of the cover for Diver Down.
Yeah, it's actually a diver flag. That's actually a flag on a boat for when you've got a scuba diver down.
Right, right.
This was my dad's copy of 1984, which still in great shape. Again, he had a small kid at that time, so didn't have as much time as he used to just sit around listen to records. But so this is again the copy I've had my entire life. And then we get into the fun stuff, right? For me, because I was born in the late 70s, for me and, everybody my age, Van Halen was Sammy Hagar for us. Hagar joined the band in 86, when we were all, 6, 7, 8, 9 years old, that was when we were starting to get into music. And yeah. So, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, this is one of Van Halen's best albums, if not a contender for the best. I mean, there is not a bad moment on this album as far as I'm concerned. I mean, you got the hits, of course. Why Can't This Be Love? And Love Walks In, and then Dreams. And I mean, I think this entire album was released as a single at some point.
Wow.
But I love it. I have always had a soft spot for this record, 5150, and I will always have a soft spot for it. I love this album to pieces.
It is a very popular album, and it's not as easy to find on vinyl.
No, it's not. I mean, 1986, I mean, people weren't leaving vinyl in droves yet, but I mean, maybe everybody that had it on vinyl has just held on to it because it's so good.
Yeah.
Last time I did Cocktails and Vinyl, I showed this one, but I'll show it again real quick. OU812 from 1988. This one had some killer songs on it too. How Will I Know When It's Love, and Cabo Wabo's on this. Cabo Wabo might be the single greatest song to come out of the Van Hagar era, as far as I'm concerned. That song is so good. And then I'm going to get to another one that's kind of near and dear to me. I'll save everybody the thing. I don't have anything past 91 on vinyl. I don't have Balance. I would love to find a copy of Balance, but my wallet laughs every time I think about it. And Van Halen 3 never came out on vinyl. And then that one they did in 2012, Different Kind of Truth with David Lee Roth. Don't have that one on vinyl either. But this one is near and dear to my heart. So for Unlawful Carnal Knowledge, this is actually a U.S. pressing from 1991. What's interesting about it is that there was no stock market pressing of this because it was 91 and vinyl was not being pressed in very large numbers at that point. This was only released in the U.S. through Columbia House. And so this is a Columbia House pressing, and there are, there are plenty of opinions about record club pressings, and I know Columbia House is usually hit or miss. This one is hit. It sounds fantastic. Mm-hmm. With that said, this may give some older Van Halen fans maybe a little bit of chest pain to know, but again, for my generation, this was our Van Halen album. This was the album that introduced an entire generation of kids to Van Halen, right? Pound Cake, Right Now, Top of the World. I mean, those songs were everywhere in the summer of 91, fall of 91. I mean, you could not escape those songs. And this is single-handedly responsible for my generation loving Van Halen. I can assure you of that. This is probably the most guitar-driven record of the Van Hagar years. I mean, this thing just rips top to bottom. And I think Pound Cake and Judgment Day is probably one of the best 1-2 openers that you'll find on any Van Halen album of any era. So yeah, I love this one. Always have.
Very cool. Could you show us the label to that one?
Oh, sure. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's also got a printed inner sleeve, and you can. Oops, here we go. So you can very clearly see the CRC on the label.
Yes,
marks it as Columbia House. And so, yeah, there was no stock market copy. If you wanted a U.S. copy on vinyl, this was your only option to get it from Columbia House.
There you go.
No, Balance is the last album that came out with Sammy Hagar. That came out in 95. Balance is actually a great album, but the original vinyl copies, there were copies pressed in 95, but they are stupid expensive on the used market now. And so, yeah, but Balance is actually a great record. But no, TC, the record you're thinking of is Van Halen 3. And Van Halen 3, I mean, I don't like that record a whole lot, honestly. I mean, there's a couple of moments on it. But the thing is, I don't think that's Gary Sharon's fault. I think
Well,
Eddie
first
Van
off,
Halen, yeah, Eddie Van Halen went mental after Sammy Hagar left because Michael Anthony kind of sort of went with him. And, he had lost his singer. He'd lost his bass player. Eddie Van Halen played most of the instruments himself on that record. I even think he played drums on some of it. I don't even think Alex Van Halen drummed on that entire record. But what's interesting is that tour with Gary Cherone in '98. The thing about Cherone was that he had the vocal range to do David's songs and Sammy's songs. And especially with some of Dave's songs that even Sammy couldn't do, they were pulling out songs on that '98 tour with Cherone. They were pulling out songs that they hadn't done in 20 years at that point because, Sammy couldn't do them. And so, reviews for that tour were actually pretty good. It's a shame that album wasn't as good, but I mean, it was basically an Eddie Van Halen solo album. And so.
Well, I like Extreme, and when I heard that Gary was going to be singing for Van Halen, I was like, wow, that's awesome. That's going to be a good vocal for a good vocal set. And then when I heard some songs, I was like, I think the song's a little weak. And then later on, I was able to see some live footage. And boy, if Gary just didn't take it off, he was amazing.
Yes.
And sometimes I think about the first album that Sammy was on and try to visualize or listen to Gary's vocals on it.
Yeah.
And nothing against Sammy. I think it would have been good. I really do.
And the thing was too is that they actually had recorded some tracks for a second album with Gary Cherone, and it all got shelved. But maybe we'll see the release of some of that stuff in the future, on compilations or whatnot. But apparently the stuff for the second album was a lot better because Gary was there from the beginning, right? And he was part of the songwriting process. He was part of the whole thing where he really wasn't with Van Halen 3. It was like, most of that album was already recorded and they just brought Gary in to sing vocals on it. So, that kind of stuff matters. It really does.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, yeah, very cool. Yeah. Well, cool. I'm sorry, just being distracted as usual. So, yeah.
No, it's all good. So, so something else I wanted to transworld.
Yes, very good.
There we go. Cool.
Let's say hello to Yolanda. Hello, Yolanda.
Hi, Yolanda.
Cheers. Thanks for joining us. All right, Shawn, take it away.
Oh, okay. So, there's a very important 50th anniversary going on right now, which is Black Sabbath's Paranoid was released in, I believe, September of 1970 in the UK. And then it didn't come out in the US until January 1971. Warner Brothers didn't want to release it because the first album was still on the charts. So, so this whole period right now is sort of the extended 50th anniversary of Black Sabbath's Paranoid. And I mean, everybody that says Black Sabbath is the reason heavy metal exists, that's not an exaggeration. It really isn't. If the world had not been graced with Tony Iommi, there is no telling what heavy metal would have become, right? And I mean, you could invite that guy over for brunch, and he would bring you 5 amazing, mind-blowing guitar riffs. The guy just spits them out. It's unbelievable.
Yes.
But Black Sabbath, of course, went through many incarnations. The most popular of which, obviously, being Ozzy when he was the singer, and this, I think, this is where it all started. Very first Black Sabbath album. This is an original, U.S. original, not UK. But, the U.S. track listing was a little bit different. And interestingly, as creepy as this cover is, the music just totally, I mean, the cover tells you exactly what you're going to listen to when you put that record on. It is just so doomy and dark and filthy. I love it. I can only imagine the number of kids that, bought this in 1970 and snuck it home from the record store and put it on their parents' hi-fi. And then, mom or dad comes home early from work and hears it and ends up breaking the record in half and putting it in the trash or whatever, But man, This record is just an absolute killer. Love it.
Yeah. Couple things in the chat, Shawn.
Sure.
Are you a fan of Jim?
Jim Pastrami.
Can't say you are?
No. Can't say I am.
Yeah. Let's say hi to Jack. Hi, Jack. How are you tonight? And let's say hi to Vinyl Guru. Hi. Are you a fan of Wanda, Jim? I mean, Shawn?
No, I can't say I am.
Not yet. Yeah. There's lots of good stuff to be discovered. So,
I actually don't know who that is.
It's okay. But anyway,
yeah.
So good. But thanks everyone for joining Vinyl Guru and Jack. Two Jacks. So there you
go. The album in question, of course. Nice original from this. It's funny when it comes to Black Sabbath albums. There's something about a little bit of crackle and hiss that adds a certain authenticity to those old Sabbath records.
Makes it even better.
Given the option of buying like an original pressing that was in near mint condition and quiet as hell, I don't know that I'd do it, man. Like I want the one that that has some history behind it, right? I want the one that I want the one that that 5 kids were smoking pot in a college dorm listening to, or whatever.
Absolutely.
Right? I want the one that's got a couple of stories attached to it.
I want the gatefold. Yeah.
Hey,
I gotta ask Vinyl Guru a question, if you don't mind, Shawn.
Yeah, of course.
I have a friend that lives in Raleigh, and sometimes Vinyl Guru, you go on his live chats. What's his name? Yeah. Jack says, I never heard those. We'll have to check them out. The Black Sabbath? Yeah. You'll have to check them out, Jack, and see what you think about them. They're
it's good stuff.
Yeah, good stuff. Yeah.
On Paranoid, God, War Pigs and the title track, Paranoid, Iron Man. They're. No, I don't have Sold My Soul for Rock and Roll. That was a compilation. I actually don't have a lot of greatest hits compilations. I'm just, they're not really my thing. But that's an incredible comp, though.
Gotcha. Yeah. Sorry, Vinyl Guru, that's not the right answer. Yeah. Oh well. Thank you for stopping by anyway, Vinyl Guru. Yeah. Oh, I love those colors, Shawn. Those colors work so well together. And plus, you have a nice shiny one that's embossed.
Oh, yeah. It's embossed. And the best part, Adam, I think you know where this is going.
Oh.
Got the poster.
There you go.
With it.
I've had the poster one time.
Yeah. I mean, most people that bought this record had that poster on their wall, man. Not in the record jacket.
I wish the poster was just a larger version of the cover, but it's okay.
Yeah, it's all right, man. God, Master Reality. Sweet Leaf, Children of the Grave, Into the Void. It's so good. Black Sabbath Volume 4, another killer one. This one's still got the book in the gatefold that's still attached. A lot of times the book's in the gatefold, but it's not actually still attached to the jacket. So
yeah. And that's good for that was good for rolling.
Oh yeah. Wheels of Confusion, Changes, Snowblind, Laguna Sunrise. It's all good stuff. Yeah. This is, I think, one of Sabbath's harder records. Sabbath Bloody Sabbath.
Yeah.
Great one. This is actually a pretty nice copy. If it's not original, it's elderly. Sabotage, another kick-ass Sabbath album.
Yeah, absolutely. That is a good one too.
And then after Sabotage in the late 70s, they kind of got into some weird stuff. And I don't know if it was the drug or whatever, right? But Technical Ecstasy and Never Say Die, nah, I'm good.
They're worth a listen, though. Yeah.
I mean, they're definitely worth a listen, right? I mean, I listen to them occasionally, and when I'm done, I'm just like, I don't hate them, but they just kind of wash over me,
Mm-hmm.
But then, after Never Say Die, they fire Ozzy Osbourne because he can't keep himself together, and they hire some bum by the name of Ronnie James Dio, and I think that really, really lit a fire under Tony Iommi's ass when they hired him. Because Heaven and Hell, the first album with Dio, this is one of the greatest heavy metal albums of all time, but B, one of the best Sabbath records of all time. I mean, you can say all you want that Sabbath isn't Sabbath without Ozzy. No, this is, cheers.
Cheers to that. My favorite Black Sabbath is Ronnie James Dio. My second Black Sabbath is
Tony
Martin. We're
going to get there. Gosh. So the second album with Dio, this one's also a scorcher, Mob Rules. If you like metal and you can listen to this and not get worked up, you're a better man than I, because this record is a scorcher. And then in 1982, Ozzy put out an album with his band that I forget the name of it, but it was a live album with his band where he did nothing but Black Sabbath songs. And then at the same time, Black Sabbath put out Live Evil, which was with Dio doing Ozzy era songs, Dio stuff. And this is definitely the better of those live albums. If you look at Ozzy's one where he was doing Black Sabbath and this one wins hands down. You're on the right drugs to appreciate. I assume he's talking about Never Say Die and Technical Ecstasy, which he's probably right, because God knows Ozzy. Yeah, the Ozzy and the rest of that band. I mean, God only knows what they were on when they were making that stuff. Favorites is Paranoid. Paranoid's great. Yeah. So then after that, Ronnie James Dio decides to bolt and forms the band Dio, which would go on to do plenty of amazing heavy metal throughout the 80s and into the 90s. But Black Sabbath kept on going. This time they hired Ian Gillan from Deep Purple, and they released one album with him. Horrid cover art, but man, this record is a barn burner. It is, I mean, Ian Gillan is literally the voice of Satan on this record. Yeah. This thing is just wild. And some of the songs on here, like Disturbing the Priest and Zero the Hero, are just all-time Sabbath classics as far as I'm concerned.
Have you seen the original Image?
Yeah, it looked similar to that, right? Or am I thinking of something else?
It was you went to the doctor's office. There's a book, a magazine over there, and there's a baby on the cover crying, and it's a parenting photograph. And so that's what it is. But Depeche Mode also used it.
Okay.
Use that same image. So when you're showing your next one, I'll do that. Hey, folks, thanks so much for joining us. Tonight we have Shawn with us tonight, and we're just having cocktails and talking about vinyl. And thank you so much for watching. I appreciate that.
So after the one and only album with Ian Gillan, Black Sabbath kind of fell apart, and Tony Iommi decided he wanted to do a solo album, and he did a solo album with Glenn Hughes, also of Deep Purple alum, on vocals, and he wanted to release it as a solo album, and the record company said, no, you're not going to release it as a solo album because the contract says Black Sabbath. So this got released as a Black Sabbath album, but it doesn't really sound like a Sabbath album. It's a good record, but it's not what you would expect from Sabbath. right? But that said, I still throw this on. I mean, at least probably once or twice a year, and listen to it. I mean, it's a perfectly good listen. I enjoy it, but it's not what you would expect from Sabbath.
Very cool. Very cool.
And then now we get to some fun stuff for Adam. After that whole debacle, Iommi sort of got Sabbath back together in earnest and hired this British vocalist that didn't have a whole lot of history, this guy named Tony Martin, who had an unbelievable voice. And you know who was actually kind of blown away by Tony Martin was my wife. A couple of times
Oh, yeah?
playing a Tony Martin Sabbath album, and she'd be like, man, who is this singing? And I'm like, oh, it's just this guy, Tony Martin. She's like, this is awesome. But this was the first album that they recorded with Tony Martin, 1987. On this record, you've got Jeff Nichols on keyboards, who's played for forever with Sabbath. And then, various people playing bass. There was kind of a revolving door of studio musicians on this. But Tony Iommi was the one constant, like he always was. And Tony Martin's vocals on this are killer. The Shining and Hard Life to Love, Born to Lose, Scarlet Pimpernel, those are all killer songs on this. This is a great one. Not hard to find. Usually kind of cheap when you find them. You find this, don't pass it up. It's great.
Yeah, I was going to say, Shawn, next time you find one, I need an upgrade. Hey, Shawn, would you mind showing that Black Sabbath with the baby?
Oh, yeah, sure.
I'm going to share the screen and show everybody what it looks like. Depeche Mode. Share, please. Okay, so there it is. That's the Depeche Mode.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, and here's the original.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And so then they turned it into Demon Child.
Yeah. Added some nails and some teeth. And then
that's
Depeche
crazy.
Mode did that.
I don't think I ever saw that before, Adam.
Yeah. It's really neat. It was really neat that somebody shared that with me. So that was very cool. Yeah. Thank you, Shawn. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Screen printed for my mom. Ooh. Yeah, I love that. I love that record. Yeah, very cool.
Nice. So after the first Tony Martin album, Black Sabbath got dropped from Warner Brothers. They'd been there for 17 years at that point. So they moved over to IRS Records and put out what is arguably the best album of the Tony Martin era, Headless Cross. This is an original 1989. This is a U.S. pressing. And it actually, this one's kind of cool. So this has Cozy Powell on drums, and Cozy Powell is a legend in the metal world. You know, whether he was playing with Rainbow or he played with Whitesnake. He played with tons of groups. But here's a cool thing about Headless Cross: the hype sticker. That this was in shrink when I bought it. It was open, but it was in shrink. A brand new slab of Sabbath in the year of our Lord, 1989. Oh
my!
Yeah, this album is a total rock fest. But this is where the Tony Martin era really started to sound like what the Tony Martin era is in retrospect, which is kind of gothic type lyrics and really dark and doomy kind of thing, and but a lot of really high production value. And a lot of people don't like the Tony Martin era because it sounds like 80s heavy metal, and you know what, that's okay. As far as I'm concerned, it's okay, and obviously I know you agree, Adam. But that was Headless Cross was actually the last Black Sabbath album to get pressed in the U.S. on vinyl until 2013 when they put out 13 with Ozzy. But anyway, after Headless Cross in 1990, they did this album, Tear. No, I don't have any Sabbath bootlegs. Sorry, I don't. This is because this was never pressed in the U.S. on vinyl, this is actually an Italian pressing that sounds phenomenal. And it's got you know, and the lyric inner sleeve. And yeah, you can see on the label there, it's got the SIAE stamp, which is required in Italy, and then down at the bottom, made in Italy by EMI Italiana.
So, is that one, before you put it away, Shawn?
Yeah.
Is that translucent?
Oh, is it Quiax? No, it is not.
A lot of IRS use that.
Yeah, in the U.S. they did, but I don't think internationally it did, because IRS records were actually pressed in Europe by EMI. In the U.S., IRS records was pressed by A&M, and A&M went all in on Quiax vinyl, which is why you see so much of it on IRS.
That's
but
true.
Internationally, it was pressed by EMI, so you don't see that as much.
So you answered this question. As far as Tony Martin, was there any live albums that were released where Tony was singing?
They did release a, I don't know, no, it wouldn't have been DVD. It would have been a VHS cassette, because it came out in '94. But when the Cross Purposes album came out, they did put out a VHS cassette of a show that they did in London, and it was called Cross Purposes Live. And that's actually a pretty good show. You can find it on YouTube if you look up Cross Purposes Live. It's not the greatest transfer from a VHS tape, but you get the point.
Did you watch it? Have you seen it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I've seen it.
Yeah. And how does Tony do with the other songs, the older songs?
Oh, he does great, man. Oh, especially Paranoid. Oh, his version of Paranoid was great.
Yeah. Very cool.
Yeah.
Now, I do like, the first few Ozzy records. There's just something shiny about them that I like. Yeah. TC said, should Black Sabbath use anything that says in the year of our Lord? That's just
probably not
wrong.
Yeah, he's probably right about that, actually.
So Jax Trax Records has a question for you.
All right.
I told Jack it depends on what time of the day it is for me.
Well, so I can actually answer that question definitively. And Adam, this actually might shock you as well. You know what my favorite band is of all time? If we're talking rock, Genesis. Not even
Genesis.
I have so much love for all eras of Genesis. Peter Gabriel, Phil Collins. I like the Ray Wilson album that they did in the 90s. I like it all, man. Genesis is absolutely my favorite band of all time, without question.
80s Genesis sounds so good.
Oh, sure it does. Yeah.
It just sounds wonderful on vinyl. Yeah.
My favorite was it Van Halen?
Was it Van Halen that had the album cover of the babies hanging from the clothesline?
No.
That was Megadeth.
Yeah. Yep.
Don't you have a copy of that on vinyl, Shawn?
Which was that Euthanasia? I don't think I have a copy of it.
I remember the video, they kept hanging the babies on the clothesline. And I was like, this is so messed up.
Yeah, the babies on the clothesline is Euthanasia. That came out in '94. I actually do not have that on vinyl. I would love to find a copy of that at some point, but I don't have one yet.
Yeah. Good question, though. Yeah. So bizarre.
Yeah, I got plenty of Rush on vinyl, sure. If we have time, I'll get to some of that.
Okay. Very cool. I think Jack says that Rush is his favorite band.
That's a pretty solid choice. Rush put out tons of great music over the decades, no doubt about that. I love Rush.
They sure did, yeah.
So after that Tony Martin Tear album, Sabbath brought back Ronnie James Dio in the early 90s for one album, Dehumanizer. This is another one that was never pressed on the U.S. or never pressed in the U.S. on vinyl originally. So this is another Italian pressing. Again, sounds fantastic. Got a nice custom inner sleeve and all that. So,
yeah, I missed that one, Shawn. I have to find that on CD or cassette. Yeah.
Oh, this one? You've never heard this?
I don't think I have.
Oh, dude. Oh, you got to hear it, man. Computer God, TV Crimes, Time Machine, Too Late, Buried Alive. Dude, I like this one as much as Heaven and Hell. Like, this one is killer, man. You got to get this.
And, you know, as much as I like Ronnie James Dio's Sabbath, I love his solo records too, Ronnie James Dio.
Yeah.
And
Man,
there's a record
store, Last in Line.
Oh, yeah. So there's a record store day. I don't know if it's record store day drops 2020 Genesis or if it's record store day Black Friday, but there's another Ronnie James Dio picture sleeve coming out.
Oh, cool. Yeah, they've done a few of those picture discs for Record Store Day, which has been kind of cool to do.
I said picture sleeve. Thanks.
Yeah. So after that album, they brought Tony Martin back again for 94, Cross Purposes Live. This was the tour where the VHS cassette that I was telling you about was done. This came out in 94. This is, some days I might tell you this is my favorite Tony Martin Sabbath album. This is the only Tony Martin's era album that has Geezer Butler on bass. So this actually has two original Sabbath members, Iommi and Butler, on it. And the songwriting is quality, man. And, you know, again, like I said, another Italian pressing. It's got a nice inner sleeve, all that. And, yeah, man, whoever was mastering these albums and cutting the lacquers for EMI in Italy during that time, that man knew what he was doing. Because, yeah, he sound great.
In the world does Shawn live? He lives in the coolest place in the world.
I live right about 30 minutes down the road from Adam. I live just outside of Raleigh in Fuquay-Varina, North Carolina.
It's really cool because I've seen, I think it's okay to say this, I've seen Shawn's children grow.
Yes, you certainly have.
I miss seeing your children. I really do.
Yeah, I brought Rico in the shop the other week, and but yeah, I'm looking forward to when I can get back in the shop and start doing that regularly without having to plan it around appointments and everything else, man. We'll get there eventually, though.
I hope so.
So let's see. Do we have any comments or questions we want to get to before I move on?
We're caught up.
Okay.
I think the trolls have all went away.
Cool. I just want to make sure because I can't see all the comments, but you can.
Okay. I've been popping up here. We're up to speed.
Okay, great. So I'm going to get into something that I guarantee you most people on this broadcast know next to nothing about. So, Adam, as you know, I speak Italian, and
very much so.
Mi piace parlare italiano. But anyway, so I do have a small collection of Italian music on vinyl. And, you know, nothing terribly obscure. Anna Oxa was a pop star in Europe in the late 70s and early 80s. This is a compilation of some of her things. And this is a pretty good listen if you like 80s pop. You know, it's all in Italian, of course. Like I said, this is all Italian music. But this is a favorite of mine. I enjoy this.
She's beautiful.
Yeah. And then, yeah, she is. She definitely is. Another one is there is a woman who has been a stalwart of Italian music for the last almost 50 years. Her name is Loredana Bertè. And she has had a career resurgence of late in Italy. She's put out a new album in 2018. But anyway, it got a lot of play on Radio Italia, which is sort of a nationwide network of radio in Italy. And this is the album called Liberté, means liberty. And this is a very limited vinyl edition on red vinyl. It's number 13 of 1,000. Limited edition. And then I also have this single of hers. This is the single that has been all over the radio, or was all over the radio. It's probably not so much anymore, but yeah, Cosa ti aspetti da me, which basically means what do you want from me? And this is on blue, I believe. Yep, blue vinyl. Pull that out. Blue 7-inch.
Mm-hmm.
And this one is number 929 of 1,000.
Wow.
So,
and where did you purchase these?
These I had to get on Discogs, right? I mean, I had to buy them from Italy.
I know one Italian word. Well, what is that word? I don't speak a word of Italian, but I have several CDs by Italian rapper.
Giovanotti.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. Yes. Gabini. I like him. So there is another guy who actually a fair number of people in the U.S. have heard of. A guy, he goes by the name of Zucchero, which means sugar. And he is the guy that is credited with bringing New Orleans to Europe. He loves like New Orleans style rock and jazz, think Dr. John, that type of stuff. He was a huge fan of this. And even though he's a relative unknown in the United States, the man has sold 60 million albums worldwide with almost no help from the US. That tells you how popular he is outside this country. This is one of my favorite albums of his. It's from 1989. I actually found this in a record store in Florence the last time I was in Italy. And this album is called Oro, Incenso e Birra, which means gold, incense, and beer. And this album is fantastic. So good. I love it.
That is awesome.
Yeah, the inner sleeve here, it's advertising his 1989 Italian tour. And so, yeah, I was totally stoked to find this at that record shop in Florence. It was very cool to find that. And then Pepe Gambetta. Yep.
This is the one word that Twin Glitch knows.
That would actually be bacia il mio culo. But okay.
So I have one customer, lives in Italy, but lives in America working for a company in Research Triangle Park. His name is not Massio. It's not like the clothing company we have, but it's very similar to that.
Mm-hmm.
And I love it when he comes in. He tells me so many cool things about Italian New Wave. He loves not only UK, but American New Wave. And
sure.
And he's told me a lot of stuff that I've been able to go listen to on YouTube.
Italian hardcore punk, too. Italian, Rome especially had a killer hardcore scene in the 80s.
I understand, but that's just something I don't care to listen to. But he loves Pylon. He grew up in Italy, loving all these American bands. And it's really great because he's been able to, he's got a full-time job, does, high-tech work. I mean, does technical work, writes code and stuff like that. So now he's able to fulfill some of his desires to get records that he wasn't able to get when he was a child or teenager.
That's great, man. That's what it's all about. That is great.
I miss them. Italian disco to die for.
So in the 70s, there was actually also a great progressive rock scene in Italy. Mm-hmm. And prog fans, even in America, probably know this band. Like if you're a diehard prog head, there was a band from Italy called Le Orme, which means the footsteps. And this is probably one of their most well-known albums called Uomo di Pezza, which basically means a stuffed man. Like if you imagine a stuffed animal, well, imagine it's a man that's stuffed. That's what Uomo di Pezza means. And so this is great prog, everything that you would expect, right? Lots of cool keyboards, guitar, all that, a lot of storytelling, really good stuff. These I actually found. I found this at a record shop in Naples the last time I was in Italy, which was cool to find. This is an '87 reissue. This came out in '72, I want to say, and this is an '87 reissue. It's Eurodance.
I respect everyone's copyright. I respect those laws, and I'm all about that. I wish we could at least get a sample of this stuff that is just so foreign to us that sharing.
Here's another Le Orme record, Felone Sorona. it's a story. It's a concept album about civilizations on 2 planets, the planets Felona and Sorona. And it's a killer record as well. This is another 87 reissue that I found at that record shop in Naples.
I think I've listened to that on YouTube. It came in one of my stream. You know how?
Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me, man. Le Orme is a staple in like prog playlists and stuff. Like if you find a good playlist or something that goes deep, chances are you'll find Le Orme on it.
Yeah.
And then the last one from Le Orme, this is a 2015 reissue that I found at a record store in Lucca, which is in the north central. It's in Tuscany. It's actually where my family originally hails from. And while we were taking a tour, I happened to notice that there was a record store. So, of course, I had to go in there. And, this is on nice translucent green vinyl. And this is a beautiful sounding reissue. So was very happy to find that. And so that's going to do it for the Italian music. But I figured it might be neat to just see some of that because, it's not something that you see every day in America.
Yeah, I do like seeing or hearing Giorgio Moroder.
Oh, yeah. Giorgio Moroder, man, that guy wrote so many great songs over the years. And if you ever get a chance, or if you have listened to Daft Punk's Random Access Memories album, that song Giorgio, where he sort of does that monologue and talks about his early days, that's a pretty engaging thing to listen to. I really enjoyed that.
And I think Ennio Morricone is Italian also, isn't he?
Hmm? Oh. Ennio Morricone. 1 second. I have something really interesting there.
Okay. There you go. Can't wait to see what it is. Yeah, thank you, everybody, for joining tonight. I appreciate it. If you're watching the replay, thank you so much for that also. Having a blast. Cheers, everyone. Ting.
Here we go.
Here he comes.
All right, got it. This is, most people will listen to this one time and never listen to it again. This is called...
Oh, you have that.
I do. This is...
I thought I was the only one that had a copy of that.
Dude, this is the strangest record I have ever heard. But Ennio Morricone is on this record. And, I don't even know what to say about it. To call this avant-garde would be an understatement. There is literally no words to describe what is on this record.
When I first saw it, I was like, is this Bill Evans? The cover.
Yeah.
But yeah, absolutely. Good listen. So this is Shawn from Australia. Hello, Shawn. How are you?
Hey, Shawn.
What time is it there? 9, 10, 11, 12. Oh, it's tomorrow afternoon. Did we have a wonderful night? Did we get a new president?
Nino Rota. I'm not as familiar with Nino Rota. I've heard of him, but I don't know much about his music.
Yeah.
Pretty
cool.
Yeah. So the last stuff that I was going to get into tonight, if we have time, was the last time I did one of these cocktails and vinyl, you were talking about Impulse a little bit and all the Impulse that was behind me. So I figured I'd show a few of those because, it wouldn't be me unless we got into a little bit of jazz. But
absolutely.
So, just for those who don't know, right, Impulse is, of course, one of the premier jazz labels of all time. It's right up there with Blue Note and Columbia and Prestige and Riverside. But Impulse was actually a major label. It was owned by ABC, and it started in 1960. And it is affectionately known as the house that Train built, because John Coltrane was the first artist that they signed, and he remained with the label for the next 7 years until he died. in 1967. And his records were, of course, the best-selling ones, in the Impulse catalog, certainly. And I've got a couple of his records in here, certainly not all of the ones that I have, but just a few that are worth mentioning, because you kind of can't talk about Impulse without Coltrane, right? But the first thing that I will show is an original mono copy of this, the great Kai Winding and J.J. Johnson, right? It features Bill Evans and Paul Chambers and Roy Haynes and Art Taylor on drums. I mean, it's just, Roy Haynes plays drums on some tracks and Art Taylor on others. But the interesting thing about this, if you look at the thing, it's catalog number A1. This is the very first release on Impulse Records. So this was the one.
Didn't see A1. Can you try that again?
Oh, sorry. There you go.
Mono. There it is. Okay, mono. Yeah. I'm sorry. So that was 1960.
Actually, the label started in 60, but the first release didn't come out until September of 61. So, 61. Yep. So this is the first catalog number in Impulse.
Amazing.
Yeah, it's a beautiful copy. And I'll say something too from a collector standpoint. If you like old jazz pressings like I do, one thing about Blue Note and Prestige especially is that while they're extremely expensive when you find them, depending on the album, of course, but even though they're extremely expensive, you can actually find them in really, really, really nice condition if you look. Impulse, forget it. Impulse is infinitely, they're not as hard to find because they're available in greater numbers, because Impulse was ABC Records, so it was a major label. But Impulse is infinitely harder to find in good condition. People that had Impulse albums in the 60s played them until you could see through them. Finding Impulse albums in better than VG condition in a lot of cases is a fool's errand. I've gotten lucky on several copies, but yeah. I mean, and near mint condition, you hardly ever find them. You just don't. They're unicorns.
So Shawn, do you have Shawn and Now Spinning TV? Do you find original pressings of Prestige and Blue Notes and Impulse in Australia? However, it's totally okay if that's not on your radar to look out for jazz records, but just curious about that.
Yeah, I would actually like to know about that as well. Yeah, Kai JJ A1 maybe.
A1 all the way.
It all started. That is where it all started, and that's a great record too. Like, it's not just cool because it's A1; it's cool because it's a great record. It really is. J.J. Johnson and Kai Winding were a great pair on the trombone. They put out tons of records as Jay and Kai for all kinds of jazz labels, from Columbia to Impulse to Savoy to you name it. Another great Impulse album. This is A33, McCoy Tyner Trio, Reaching Forth, killer. McCoy Tyner was a member of John Coltrane's classic quartet for a long time. And that man was an absolute master of the piano. I mean, he's up there with Bill Evans and Herbie Hancock and, the best of his era. The only near mint Impulse that I own, and this is, I don't care if you find this in horrid condition, buy it because it's so good. So this is A52, Sonny Stitt and Paul Gonsalves. Sonny Stitt is one of those guys that was very popular in his day by jazz standards, but is almost forgotten about today, which is good because when you find his records, they're plentiful because plenty of people had them back in the day, and they're all usually pretty cheap. Sonny Stitt had an amazing ability on saxophone. You listen to this guy. I mean, I would listen to this guy play an album of Mary Had a Little Lamb.
Oh, that's totally cool, Shawn. Thanks for sharing that. I am new to jazz. Sorry. Don't be never. Just know the popular titles. That's totally cool. TC was asking, would you recommend Impulse titles as a good introduction to basic jazz for someone who's new at it?
there are a couple of Impulse albums that I would recommend. Probably not too much of Train's, but there are actually 2 Train albums in my short little stack here that I think would be a good introduction for people. So we'll get there. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you'll find some cool things here. Bob Thompson Trio.
Yes, I love the Bob Thompson Trio. It's good stuff. That's excellent. Yeah, I love that stuff.
Very cool. Yeah, yeah. Shawn, Impulse 1970, when they entered the new decade, what was the number? What was the catalog number for Impulse and when they entered 1970?
Well, I mean, it was a little bit before 1970, but that's when they started. So when they hit 100, they started putting a 9 in front of it. So it would be like 9101, 9102, 9103. But that's the only thing I can think of. That, and interestingly, to draw a Genesis connection, the second Genesis album, the second Genesis album, Trespass, was the first one to be released in the U.S., and it was actually released on Impulse in 1970 in the U.S. In the UK, it was released on Charisma, like all of their albums were. But in the US, it was released on Impulse.
Wow, cool.
Yeah, isn't that weird? A jazz label like Impulse putting out something like Genesis.
So in 1970, do you know what number Impulse was on? How many did they release in the 60s? I can look that up later. Just wondering.
I want to say it's about 150.
Wow, that's a good run.
In the 60s, yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
So another Impulse classic, if you get any more into jazz than the basics, something everybody should have a copy of, All of Nelson's Blues and the Abstract Truth. This record is just a ride. It is so, so good.
Eric Dolphy talking about having lunch.
Out to lunch.
Yeah.
So, drummer Chico Hamilton and guitarist Gabor Szabo put together in Chico Hamilton's quintet and quartet, put together some of, for my money, some of the best albums or some of the best jazz of the 60s. This is one of the best albums that he did for Impulse. He did a number of them for Impulse, but this is one of the best. This is A59. This is Man from Two Worlds. Gabor Szabo was as good as Kenny Burrell and Grant Green as far as guitar goes. Like, if you like those guys, you will love Gabor Szabo. So anything that you see from Chico Hamilton, check and see if Gabor Szabo plays on it, because if he does, I can tell you right now, it's going to be awesome.
Wow. So my mind went to the cover of Chico where he had the mannequin.
Oh, yeah. I forget the name of that record, but I know the art.
Yeah,
I know what you're talking about.
I may have a copy of that, but just, bam, my mind went there. Yeah, very cool.
And then the last one of just stone cold Impulse classics that I wanted to share with everybody is this. Curtis Fuller's Soul Trombone. This is A13. The band on this, I mean, for anybody that likes jazz and knows jazz, I mean, you look at this, at the band, and people are just like, whoa. It ought to be criminal to have this much talent on one record, straight up. So yeah, this is stone cold Impulse classic.
Mm-hmm.
Getting into Coltrane, just a few of them. This is a great place to start for Coltrane, especially on Impulse. This album just simply titled Coltrane. This is an original from '62. This is A21. You know, Coltrane was obviously known for some pretty out there stuff, especially later in his career. This was kind of before a lot of that. So this is definitely a little more accessible for people. This is an unbelievable album. I mean, he plays with such romance on this record. It's not even funny. It's so good. Another fun record that Coltrane did, or I find it fun, A66, original mono copy of Crescent. Crescent is a must-have in his Impulse catalog. Again, nothing too far out, pretty accessible. Good stuff on this. I would probably be remiss if I didn't show a copy of quite possibly one of the most watershed jazz albums of all time. This is an original stereo from 1965, A Love Supreme. I can't. There you go. I cannot possibly say. What is that? Is that a document?
This is the 2-disc audio.
Oh, the complete master.
3-disc audio. And there's a video, I think, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, I got this in more recently, and it's a keeper for me. Yeah.
And there's the label on that. So that's an original stereo. So it's beautiful. Sounds great. And this album is a stone cold classic of jazz for a reason. The musicianship and just the songwriting and everything is, Coltrane was just otherworldly on this record.
I beg your pardon, it's a 3 compact disc audio.
Okay.
And disc 3 live at the festival.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so that's very cool.
Yeah, nice.
Wow. And so you got, one day you purchased a really cool Impulse from me. I can't remember the title, Shawn.
I believe I got this one from you, actually.
Okay.
I've gotten a couple of Impulse from you. I did buy one from you recently, and I'm trying to remember what it was. Right. It's on my shelf somewhere. I'll know it if I see it. But any album you find, so a lot of times with Yusef Lateef, right? Mm-hmm. He's playing flute on a lot of the jazz albums that he's on. But anytime you find a record of him playing tenor, buy it.
Right. Yeah, yeah. You ever heard of Bob Thompson for you?
Yeah, we talked about that a little bit earlier, but yeah, I love Bob Thompson. It's great.
I'm sorry.
His stuff is awesome. Yeah.
Hey, Shawn, do you have any Eno produced albums?
Eno produced? Yeah, I've got Talking Heads, right, and I've got a couple. Got some of the U2 albums that he produced. Roxy Music. By the way, all those Roxy Music records I picked up from you, I really enjoyed those. Those were great.
They fun, and I'm still finding Roxy.
And I was, I know I mentioned on one of your live streams in the comments, I mentioned that Brian Eno's solo stuff was really how I how I learned about Roxy Music, and Brian Eno's album Music for Airports just completely changed my life. Yeah. Who can go from Van Halen to Coltrane must have an amazingly diverse collection. Hey, I think it was the last time I did Coffee and Vinyl, it was Harry who said, looked like you had a pretty impressive copy of vinyl. And Kurt, I'll say the same thing to you. If you don't think your own record collection is the greatest one in the world, you're probably doing it wrong. So, but yes, I have quite a diverse taste in music. I do. And I certainly appreciate that comment. Thank you.
Sure. Shawn, I was thinking it was a 3-digit Impulse you got from me. I can't recall. Just got Music for a good choice. That's a good one to have.
Music for Airports. That is where ambient music starts, as far as I'm concerned.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So,
music.
Was it Shawn that was asking about if Impulse is a good place for jazz novices? Whoever it was that was asking about that, I can't remember. I thought it was Shawn. But maybe it wasn't. Oh, it's TC. Okay. So TC, here is one that I would absolutely recommend for somebody who knows nothing about jazz. This record right here, Duke Ellington and John Coltrane.
Ooh.
This is, there are a million reissues of this. You can get it very cheap. This is A30, I believe. Yeah, A30. And you can get this cheap. There are a million great sounding reissues out there. this album, I cannot say enough amazing things about it. Duke Ellington on piano, Coltrane on tenor, and then you've got, on some tracks, you've got members of Ellington's band at that time playing, and then on other tracks, you've got members of Coltrane's band that were playing at that time, which is really interesting for an album of that time period. And especially the first track on this, In a Sentimental Mood, that is an Ellington classic, but the version on here might be the greatest recorded version of that song known to man. So, I mean, even if you know nothing about jazz, this is a great place to start.
Very cool.
Yeah.
I just got Throbbing Gristle's 20 jazz greats.
Cool.
Yeah. I don't know what to think, but I probably think of the most extreme Throbbing Gristle sound. So I have to check that out. Shawn, can you say anything about the reissues of Impulse? You touched on it, but
yeah. So, you know,
what's happening today?
Yeah, so I haven't heard any of these brand new Impulse reissues. I will say that when I hear that they are from the original analog masters, I think so. Impulse right now is owned by Universal Music and was in 2008 as well when the fire happened. And I think personally that Universal Music has lost any and all right to claim that anything pre, like, say, 1989 is reissued from the original analog masters. They can't prove that, and there will always be that doubt there because of the fire. Right? So I don't know, you know, but I mean, I've heard that they sound good. I personally have not heard them. That said, I have bought several just, you know, regular run-of-the-mill Impulse reissues over the years, and I mean, they sound fine, right? I mean, I didn't have any cat from Berkeley that says jazz on an album is no longer jazz. Yeah, I think that's, I mean, I get it, right? You know, jazz was big. So that's the old mentality of, you know, jazz was on 78s and you got one song per side, and anything more than that, and it's just, you know, that whole mentality goes along with people who hate bebop, right? Because in the late 40s, when Charlie Parker was really coming on the scene, you found a lot of people, common everyday people, who left jazz because they turned their back on the audience, because jazz started to become less about making the audience dance and more about the individual musicianship and the wow factor. And that really rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. And jazz on albums was kind of a natural progression of that as you got into the 50s and the long playing record became a thing. So I just, yeah, no, I don't buy that at all.
Yeah.
I don't buy that.
That fire, you're exactly right, TC. What's really sad about it is that they tried to hide it. And, you know, for all those years. And if that reporter did not discover it, they never would have come forth to mention that.
Yeah, and I mean, so like I said, you know, like for instance, that brand new reissue of A Love Supreme, they're saying that was mastered from the original analog master tape from Rudy Van Gelder's studio, the tape that Rudy Van Gelder recorded it on. And you know what? That may be true, because Michael Fremer, who is the editor for Stereophile magazine, he said that during the 2008 fire that master tape for A Love Supreme was checked out by another audiophile label that was doing a reissue at that time. Whether or not that's true, I don't know. I don't know where his source was from for that. I don't know if that's really true. If it is, then that's wonderful that we still have the actual Rudy Van Gelder recorded master tape for A Love Supreme. But I can't say that for 100% fact. I mean, that 2008 fire completely destroyed Universal's credibility with me.
Yeah, it was misfortunate that it happened to begin with, that it wasn't properly.
Yeah, and the fact that they covered it up and didn't come clean about it.
Yeah, that's the saddest part.
And I mean, there was nothing illegal that happened there, right? I mean, I've heard some hardcore people be like, "Oh, they should be sued for that." But I mean, you can't, right? It's art in the end. It's artistic work. The art went up in flames. I mean, it is what it is. But it makes a guy like me cringe at the amount of history that was lost that day.
So Donald comes on Coffee and Vinyl a lot. He comes to the Wake Forest shop a lot, and he's buying a lot of the reissues of jazz, and he's also he's got his finger on the pulse of the analog. Analog.
Like you mean the all analog reissues?
What analog? What's that?
Oh, Analog Productions.
Analog Productions, and Music
Matters, and all of those audiophile labels, yeah.
Yeah, and so he's on top of all of that, and he just tells me so much stuff, and so he does a lot of research on his end. So I'll have to ask him about some of the impulse things and things like that.
Yeah, he might be in a better position to answer those questions about the audiophile reissues, because I just don't know. I mean, Adam, you know me as well as anybody when it comes to records, man. I like my originals. I like to hear those records the way that they were released, right? I like to hear them the way that history deemed them to be. So I don't tend to fool too much with the audiophile reissues and things. That that's just the way that I prefer to do it. But I don't begrudge anybody that likes the audiophile reissues. I mean, great. If you like that stuff, awesome.
Well, not only audiophile, but just, reissues. And just like a song.
Of course.
We'll find something to put in the place until we find a copy.
Yeah. And I mean, those reissues are great, especially for people that, they just want the music. It's great. I mean, I love the fact that so much stuff is getting reissued these days. That is nothing but a good thing as far as I'm concerned. I love it. Absolutely love it.
I am too. I really am. And I think we have a Bill Evans coming out Saturday.
Cool.
I think so. For Record Store Day drops 2020. But it's just so good to see. And I was sharing with Shawn, folks, that I like Leroy Vinegar a lot, and I'm looking forward to giving this baby a wash and playing it and checking it out.
Yeah,
Leroy Vinegar. And I miss my customer Rick, who lives in New York, lives in Raleigh, and who, growing up was able to go to the jazz club and see some of these people.
Oh man,
are no longer with us, and has wonderful stories. And
Adam, I would kill to have been able to go to jazz clubs in the late 50s through the early 70s in New York.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We have some jazz clubs here, Shawn, and
we do.
I don't hear people talk about it much. And I know that like Brubeck played North Carolina State University 3 or 4 times. And
those were great too. Those were great performances.
And, and so much did happen around here. We had, I don't know if you'd discovered him or not, Shawn, but the piano player Paul Montgomery was
he's from North Carolina, right?
Yeah, and then that wonderful lady who sings was from North Carolina too. I can't recall her name, but she did some work where Paul played piano, and
very nice.
There was a jazz. I think there was a restaurant that would have jazz while you're dining on a Friday night and Saturday night in North Hills, and it's just hard to connect with people who can share those stories. But I would love to find some to come on here for Coffee and Vinyl or Cocktails and Vinyl and just talk about it.
Well, I was going to say we still need to get together with you, me, and DJ Bill and whoever else you've got that really likes jazz, man. Let's do a jazz.
Yeah, Billy, DJ Billy Bill. Where is that Winton dude? I think he's one or two or both or in Durham. I think the father had died. Winton Marsalis.
Yeah, Winton Marsalis.
Yeah, and I think he's living in Durham. And
my wife has played with Winton Marsalis at Jazz at Lincoln Center.
Mm-hmm. And what's your Wife,
My wife was a music major in college, and when she was in high school, her high school was regularly in the top 3 jazz bands in the United States. And so she was regularly invited to jazz at Lincoln Center as part of her high school band. And she got to play with a lot of jazz legends, Wynton Marsalis, Clark Terry, some others that, so yeah, that was quite a thing for her.
What's her instrument?
My wife played bass clarinet, and she also played baritone sax.
Yeah. Shawn and I both, I'm sure Shawn would agree with me, we talked about it before. There's so much jazz out there, folks, that is good, that does not have the name that's a household recognizable name.
Yeah,
and
there's so much.
And you can just dive into it and give it a try. If you don't like it, there's a lot of jazz that is $5, $8, $10 that you can just give a chance on and try it out. Yeah. And you'll probably find some stuff you like. Yep. I'm always like, if you're attracted to the cover, cool. And then, you begin to realize you're a horn guy, you're a piano guy, you're this guy, you're this guy.
Yep. No doubt. So I'll just go through my last couple of Impulse. I've got I got 5 left, and 2 of them are Stone Cold jazz classics, never mind Impulse classics, and the other 3 are albums that I feel are incredibly underrated in the Impulse catalog. They're just amazing albums that no one ever talks about.
All right, bring it on.
Here's an original copy of Charles Mingus's Black Saint and the Sinner Lady, A35. Mingus is not somebody that I would recommend. Mingus was my introduction to jazz, but as someone who got introduced to jazz through Mingus, he is not a good introduction to jazz. Charles Mingus is a genius. The man was one of the greatest human beings to ever pick up a bass, but his music is not easily digestible. But when you get into jazz, he is part of what I would call the second wave, right? If you listen to all the Gateway Drug albums, Kinda Blue, Blue Train, Giant Steps, Duke Ellington and John Coltrane, Time Out, right? All of those, if you get past those and you want more, Mingus is part of your second wave. And the Black Saint and the Sinner Lady is probably his masterwork. Killer album.
Very cool.
Yeah. And then so he only did 2 albums for Impulse. Vince Guaraldi. So funny thing about Vince Guaraldi, right? That guy put out some awesome jazz on Fantasy Records in the 60s, one of which was A Charlie Brown Christmas, which is one of my favorite jazz albums of all time. I don't care that it's a Christmas album. That record is amazing. Monin, Art Blakey and the Jazz Messengers. Yes, sirree, Bob.
Yeah. Hi, Myra Elaine. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Hi, Myra.
Yeah. Wow.
So Mingus only put out 2 albums on Impulse, Black Saint and the Sinner Lady, and this one. Mingus. Most of us just refer to it as 5 Mingus. So this is A54. And this one is interesting because it doesn't have any new material on it. This is actually Mingus covering himself. This is sort of like a career retrospective for him, where he took a bunch of his well-known pieces that he recorded on other albums for other labels. He gave them new names and re-recorded them with his band at this time. This is great, although I probably wouldn't recommend it as an intro to Mingus. If you want to get into Mingus, the first place you start is Mingus which came out on Columbia in 1959. The other one, the next one after that would be the Black Saint and the Sinner Lady, the one I just showed. And then if you're still digging it, I'd go with this and also check out some of his trio recordings from the late 50s. So yeah.
There's a that's being issued for Record Store Day. I don't know if it's Record Store Day Drops 2020 or Record Store Day Black Friday. I noticed that. Yeah. And I don't remember.
The more people that can get that album on vinyl, the better.
Yeah, absolutely. The Peanut Specialist, how I found out about him.
Sure.
became a fan.
And you know, go ahead, Adam. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Everybody, TC, you're like, wonderful introduction to jazz for a little one. And that record sells all the time and is forever being issued. And
so
I think this year it's a lenticular cover.
And the interesting thing about that too is that a Charlie Brown Christmas, the producers of the show originally wanted Dave Brubeck to do that, and Dave Brubeck told him that he was busy, and he pointed him to Cal Tjader, and Cal Tjader said he was busy and pointed him to Vince Guaraldi. I could not imagine what a Charlie Brown Christmas would have sounded like with Dave Brubeck or Cal Tjader doing it. I mean, Vince Guaraldi he hit that out of the park. And what's funny about that album too, when you think about it, is that so I've actually got an original stereo pressing of a Charlie Brown Christmas that's in very good plus condition, is beautiful and sounds great. But original copies of that are actually almost impossible to find these days, and they're expensive as hell when you do, because that album actually didn't become a Christmas classic until like the late 70s and the early 80s, when all the kids that watched it live in 1965 started getting a little bit older and sentimental about their childhood. And that's when it became the Christmas classic that it's seen as today. But for like the first decade or decade and a half that album was out, nobody bought it. Nobody cared. And the original pressings that were sold were all probably given to kids, right? And we all know took great care of their records.
But Vince wrote all the Vince was the composer of that record, correct?
He was.
Yeah, okay, got you. Didn't you just hear Shawn, Adam? It was one of the best jazz albums of all time, and of course it's a great introduction to little ones.
Yes. Yes. So 3 Impulse albums that I'll show. These are the last 3. 3 Impulse albums that I will show that I feel are incredibly underrated in the Impulse catalog, meaning they're awesome records and nobody ever talks about them. First one is this. Terry Gibbs, Take It From Me, A58. So Terry Gibbs is a vibraphonist, and vibes in jazz is something that is not everyone's cup of tea. I love vibes. And when you think of great vibraphonists in jazz, names like Bobby Hutcherson, Lionel Hampton, Gary McPartland come to mind. But Gary McFarland, excuse me. But Terry Gibbs is up there as well. And if you ever find this album, this is one of the cheapest Impulse albums you'll ever find an original of. You can normally find these for $5-10. You ever find this, don't pass it up. It's amazing. And as you can see, Adam, it's got one of your favorite jazz guitarists on it. It's got Kenny Burrell. And I will tell you, Kenny Burrell is on fire on this record.
Wow.
So that's one. 2 more. This is another Duke Ellington combining with someone else. So somebody else from Duke Ellington's, another contemporary of Duke Ellington's that was having a real late career resurgence in the late 50s and into the 60s was Coleman Hawkins. And Impulse put out an album here, A26. This is Duke Ellington meets Coleman Hawkins. And this has Johnny Hodges and Lawrence Brown and Aaron Bell and just some highly talented alum from Ellington's band. And there is so much great material on this record. Again, this is another one that you usually find really cheap. And if you find this, don't pass it up. It is awesome.
Absolutely. TC had the Charlie Brown Christmas late 70s reissue.
Yeah.
Very cool.
And then the last one in my underrated, but you need to hear it. This is actually Coleman Hawkins. Today and Now by Coleman Hawkins Quartet, A34. Dude, this album is stupid good. Nobody ever talks about it, but oh man, I can't say enough good things about this one. So this is another one. Get it if you see it.
Absolutely. Very cool stuff. Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah.
So
mind blowing.
Good stuff, man.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome, Shawn. It looks like you got plenty of material behind you where we could do this a few more times.
Anytime you want to do it, I'm down, my friend.
Yeah, I need to reach out and grab some other jazz cats and just have a wonderful night. I would love to talk Dawn. I would love to talk Dawn into coming on. Yeah, but yeah, maybe we can even get Ken to come on with us. And
you talking about McAuliffe, the guy on
yeah, he's from North Carolina.
Is he? He lives in New York City now, but
I think he's Kernersville.
Okay.
I can't remember. We've chatted about it before. Yeah. And so the guy lives up in New York. I would love to see a tour of his apartment. Great shares. Absolutely.
Yeah, I would too.
I'm adding a bunch of this stuff you mentioned to my Spotify where I can find it just to check it out.
If there's any of those albums that you can't find on Spotify, TC, I can guarantee that you will find them on YouTube. So
YouTube's my go-to.
YouTube if you can't find them on Spotify.
Yeah. Wow, wonderful stuff, Shawn. I appreciate you hanging out with us tonight and sharing more of the cool stuff. And
anytime,
Shawn and us TV. Now spending TV, Shawn. If this time is good for you, we can make it happen for Cocktails and Vinyl sometime on a Tuesday night, and everybody else. But it's kind of fun. Sorry, Carson had to leave. I guess we didn't talk about Rush enough. Yeah.
Oh, that's all right.
It's all right. Yeah. Shawn, any final words?
Not too much. I hope everybody, if you have any wants for Record Store Day, hope you land it. The only want I had for Record Store Day, which I don't have a prayer of getting because I'm not gonna get there at 3 a.m. and stand to be first in line. I would love to get that copy, get a copy of that Skid Row reissue of Slave to the Grind, but I don't have a prayer of getting that. So.
I held one in my hands today, Shawn.
I think you and I might need to talk offline about that, and it's going to be worth my while to come.
You want this to be my last Record Store Day?
No. I would never do that. But
okay, good.
I am curious. Just yeah.
I can't remember how limited it is.
I think it's like 1,500 copies. I mean,
I think you have a copy of that, don't you?
I don't. I have the first album, the self-titled one.
Oh gosh, TC, I wish you lived around here. Yeah, I wish you lived around here.
And I'm sure a lot of those Skid Row copies are going to get bought by flippers who are just going to go on Discogs and try and sell them for $100.
I hope not, Shawn. I hope not. I'm gonna go live tomorrow afternoon in Raleigh, and I'm going to show every title that I have for Record Store Day, Black Friday. Record Store Day drops 2020. Gosh, okay. Record 4 in a row, and it's been really hard to keep track of everything. And
I hope that it's been going well for you, and I hope that you've been selling the copies that you bought and everything, and that you're doing okay financially on that and all that. Because like I said the last time I did Cocktails and Vinyl, rather, is just please, everybody, make sure that you're supporting your local record stores during this time. A lot of them are open by appointment only. Some of them are only doing online sales. But try and support these guys, because if they don't make it through this, you're really, really going to miss them when they're gone. So
that is so true. Hey, Shawn, I'm going to put a link in the chat. We've been listening to some wonderful music in the background for the evening. It's non-copyright or copyright-free music. I kind of put it on to drown the guys upstairs for a little bit. So there you go. Yeah, 1 o'clock is the time to do it. And then Kurt was looking for the Doriti column, and he was able to find one.
Nice.
but he found it at retail price, and that's the cool thing is us independent record stores, when we're allowed to put it online, we put it up at retail price. Yeah.
One of my big things, one of the more recent record store days, and in the past, I think it was last year, was the Crow soundtrack, which I think everybody wanted, and I happened to get lucky that a shop didn't get everything that they were supposed to get for record store day and on the day, and then they got their shipment of all the stuff that they were supposed to get and didn't. They got that the following Monday, and they had a couple of copies of the Crow, so I got lucky.
Yeah, and then it was it's coming out soon, I think. I can't remember.
General release. Yeah, they're looking at doing a general release of it. So,
or did it already come out? I can't remember. I just remember the Cures on it.
The soundtrack that came out in '94 originally.
Right, but it's come out recently, or it's coming out soon. I can't recall.
Yeah, it did. So it came out as a limited edition record store day release last year on 2 LPs, one that was white, one that was black. And then they just announced that they're going to do a general pressing and a general market release of it with 2 black LPs. And if it hasn't come out yet, it'll be out before the end of the year.
Yeah.
So
just keep in mind, black's a color too, folks.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Shawn, thanks for hanging out.
Hey, anytime, Adam. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. And let's do it again soon.
Always welcome to do it. Reach out like you do. Bug me. Thank you so much. Everybody, have a wonderful evening.
See you guys.
See you tomorrow. Bye-bye.